What is the best Fuji lens for video? But more precisely, what is the best lens for the Fujifilm system? Now, I'm making this video because I am getting a lot of DMs about what is the best lens for my Fujifilm camera. That really does depend on what Fujifilm camera you have. So if we're talking about something like the X-H2S, which I am recording on now, you do have to factor in things like in-body image stabilization and whether you want that on your lens or not. But if you have something like maybe the X Pro 3 or something like that, you may want to consider having it in your lens. Anyway, we can get into all those variables in a bit, but what I'm going to do is just give you 3 alternatives that I use in 3 kind of different scenarios and ways. And also stay tuned to the end because I'm going to give you a curveball. It's not a lens that I've used, but it could be perfect for your use. So let's not waste any time. The first lens that I want to suggest, and the one that I use probably the most and that I'm using now, is the Sigma 18-35 f1.8. I've used this lens from the very beginning. I've actually bought this lens twice. I bought it for the Canon system, and now I've bought it for the Fujifilm system. This lens is amazing. I used to talk about this lens all the time when I first got my X-H2S because a lot of people asked again what was my setup, and this lived on my camera for the majority of the time. As you can see, some of the footage I've been able to get with this lens has been amazing. I've taken it to a fair few places and I've traveled with it extensively. The image quality is superb. It's very sharp, which some of you may not like, some of you may not really prefer, but I do, because you could probably downgrade that using something maybe like Enhancer, which is a plugin which gives you very aesthetic kind of film grainy kind of vibes, very cinematic. That's a very good plugin to use. But what I like about it most is its focal length. The 18-35, it has a real breadth. I'm in a really small room right now and I'm quite close to the camera, but the width I'm able to get and the shallow depth of field from the 1.8 aperture is really nice, and I think that's what a lot of people are drawn to this lens for. Perfect if you are interviewing, doing YouTube. I use it for all my corporate and client work, and I genuinely think it's an amazing lens. But I do have some issues. One of them is just the size alone. It's massive, it's huge. The lens alone is just 810 grams. And I say the lens alone because if you're using this for your Fujifilm camera, you're gonna need an adapter. And I use the Fringer EF FX Pro 2 adapter. So that's also gonna add on an extra 130 grams, which will bring you to 940 grams. That's nearly 1,000 grams just for the lens, which makes that considerably big and considerably heavy. So that one has always been a downside. It's not always been something I've wanted to travel with, and has made me think about even going full frame, not for the money, but for the setup, the size, especially if you're using the X-H2S. But when it comes to image quality, this is something that I don't want to compromise, so I'm happy to use it. The autofocus is somewhat loud. You can really hear the mechanics of the lens when it's focusing. I don't know if you can hear this. That's really not great if you're using something like a shotgun mic, which I am, and you're moving in and out of focus. It's fine if you're like here and I'm not going anywhere, I'm not really jumping around. The autofocus hasn't really got to do too much, but just lock onto my eye and my face. Another small niggle I have is that it's not weather sealed, so I can't use this on wet and rainy days. I do run the risk of getting dust on my sensor, so that's a bit of an issue. And maybe one of the most concerning things is there is no OIS, there's no optical image stabilization. You are really having to rely on the camera, which you have, to do all the work. That's why I was talking about all those variables at the beginning. You're getting 7 stops of IBIS, which is really going to stable your footage. Where if you had that extra optical image stabilization, you're not going to have too many troubles. As I said, this is my most used lens for video. It does all my professional work and it does all my YouTube. So if you see me talking to the camera, it's either this or my DJI Osmo Pocket 3. But that's when I'm on the go, I'm on the fly, and I haven't got this set up. So if you're seeing me, usually it's coming through this setup. Now, here is the second alternative. the Fujifilm 18-55 kit lens. Once again, this is a zoom lens, but I think one of my most underrated lenses. I have wanted to sell this lens so many times, but it keeps drawing me back for its image quality and its performance. What I like about this lens so much is it is so compact, so much lighter than something like the Sigma, and so much more travel friendly. It also, which is a really big thing for me, has OIS. So this thing has OIS built in. It has a little kind of switch on the side which you can turn on and off. I mean, I leave it on all the time, but when I pair this with my XH2S, I'm getting super stabilized shots straight out of camera. As you can see here, none of this has been stabilized in post. This is all straight out of the camera. And so who I would recommend this to is for people who are possibly traveling, wanting to do B-roll, wanting to take something small, compact, but still get all of those shots and still have great optics. Unlike the Sigma, you're getting all the way to 55. It does extend externally and it isn't Weber sealed, but 18-55 is a huge range, and like I said, pairs superbly with something like the XH2S, with the XS20, the X Pro 3, because with the X Pro 3 there is no IBIS, so this is really essential for a camera like that if you're going to do video, because your footage is just going to come out, it's going to be like jelly. So this is going to make this unjellified, perfect for getting just smoother footage. It doesn't have the greatest autofocus, but Fujifilm kind of has that reputation anyway. So if autofocus bothers you, I really don't think maybe Fujifilm might be right for you. I'm not a huge fan of the aperture ring, and the focus ring is tiny, but for the price point and how light this thing is, I think you can't ignore it, especially if you're looking for something like B-roll, travel. I took this to Italy. As you can see, all these shots are shot with I think it was the XS20 and this lens. That's all I had, that's all I needed, and look how it performed. Okay, so the third lens I would like to offer is the 16-55 f2.8. Now, what I didn't mention about the last lens, the 18-55, is that it has a variable aperture, where the 16-55 does not. So you get a constant aperture of 2.8 throughout, from 16 all the way to 55, which is not the case with the kit lens. It ranges from 2.8 to 4. Now, why I'm suggesting this lens is for people who like to shoot outdoors in all conditions, in all weathers, because this lens of the three is the only one that's weather sealed. As I failed to mention about the Sigma, is that this is a focus by wire, where the Sigma is a mechanical focus, which in essence this one is harder to manually focus than the Sigma. But I would say that the autofocus on this lens is far greater. It is a heavy bugger. It comes in at 657 grams, but when you tee that up against the Sigma, which was 940 grams with that adapter, that's still a hell of a lot lighter. This is a red badge label, which makes it one of Fujifilm's flagship lenses. So it means the optics are beautiful, but a downside to this lens is that it doesn't have any OIS. But with it being this heavy, it grounds your camera a lot more, which in essence is going to help you get more stabilized shots. Personally, I would prefer it in this. That's why we talk about the kit lens. But again, with the range from 16 to 55, that's such a breadth of focal length that you're getting with this lens. I really think it's hard to ignore. I took this around Asia, and optically I thought this was stunning. I felt secure that my lens and my camera were not going to get any water or dust on them, and having that extra 2mm over something like the 18mm can be really noticeable in tight spaces. So another kind of pro to getting this lens. Now, before I talk about the curveball, I just want to talk about filters quickly, because the filter that I use for my videoing is the Freewell filter. This is a quick magnetic swap one, and it's also a CPL. I've made a video on this filter here, which you're more than welcome to watch. This is great and has been a joy to use, and has been able to control the amount of light getting onto my sensor and dropping down those lovely depth of field, especially with the Sigma, which can get down to 1.8, can really stop down in bright sunshine. So go check out that free well, and I'll leave a link in the description. But let's talk about the curveball. Now, the curveball is that just a couple of days ago, we learned about the new 16-55 Mark II. We've learned that it's 37% lighter and 11% shorter. They've added new linear motors, which are faster and quieter, apparently, so better autofocus. It's still fully weather sealed, which is a big plus. It's something that the first two lenses don't have, and something that, you know, I would encourage if you, like I said, you're doing a lot of videoing outside, then this and the Mark I is, you know, essential. It's still at its constant f2.8, and they've added an extra ED element which will improve the sharpness in the edges and the chromatic aberration. And one of the biggest and newest features about the Mark II is that there's a clickless aperture ring, so you're not going to get the turning of every clicked aperture. It's not going to go, and you'll see the change. It'll be a nice smooth kind of follow through kind of ring, which is really exciting, and kind of specifically for video shooters. So that's really exciting. Will be fun to play with. The only con that I can see is that there is no optical image stabilization. Again, it can be hard to put that into a lens, but I really wanted that, and this being all about video, that would have been great. So that's the curveball. Maybe, I don't know, let me know in the comments, but maybe that eradicates the Mark I. Let me know your thoughts. I'm really eager to get my hands on this. I want to try it. I want to just have a play with it. I don't know if I'd buy it, and I don't know if I'd sell the Mark I, but I'm very interested in the Mark II from the description and the specs that I've seen. It looks to be, you know, more compact, better for travel and better for video. So yeah, it would be interesting to play with. Anyway, they are just my offerings. They are my solutions. They are the lenses that I have been using over the past few years. The Sigma is my number one go-to because it does all my YouTube and my client work. For vacationing, for travel, it will have to be the kit lens. And then you have to weigh up what kind of conditions you've got. Maybe you need something that's going to handle some heavy weather. So it could be the Mark I, or it could be the Mark II, the 16-55 f2.8. So they are my offerings. Let me know what yours are. Let me know if you agree. Let me know if you use the same setup. Let me know if you think I'm talking trash. I appreciate all the feedback and the comments, and I hope that this video has helped.